Hey, welcome everybody. It's Patrick from the Wellness Enterprise and Nico from the Wellness Enterprise. And we are ready to talk about the Cosmic Tower again. People have been sending in so many questions that we just want to handle them in a video. It's like sometimes it's just easier to talk things through than write out everything. And some of these, there's a little bit of a story. So speaking of stories, Nico, one of the people was really curious about Harald's background. And, he had this situation where he had to escape and leave his home. And, what kind of business was he in that he was supporting himself? Like what kind of engineer had he been in the past? And then, what were the forces that he had to go on the road from? And how long was he on the road? Like if you could just kind of fill in what you know about his background, I think that would be an awesome one to start with today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Patrick.
And for those that don't know, might be joining for the first time, Harald is the Harald Thiers, the inventor of the Cosmic Tower and the guy who's gotten close to 2,000 of these out in Europe in just 2 years. Certainly over 1,000, I know. And so that's who we're talking about here. And Nico is our the Wellness Enterprise specialist who's been over to Europe and met Harald and gone and seen the big towers that are going to be coming to the States soon. And that's who we're dealing with here today.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for bringing us all up to speed. And thank you, everyone, for joining and for your interest. And I believe, I don't know if Harald went into the whole history, if that was on our preparation call, Patrick, or if he did that in the public call, but just the cliff notes from what I remember. Actually, Harald is an electromechanical engineer. We have the same degree. So he was trained in Germany, me in Belgium. So we have a very similar background in that perspective. And I think he worked a lot desalination plants and those type of industrial environments. So as an electromechanical engineer, he has a really good handle on constructing machines and what you need to get to a particular outcome, right? That's what we're trained to do. So that's his background. Now, the Cosmic Tower actually came in through his son, because his son, for a better word, was clairvoyant and was born that way and had, as I would say, retained his connection or his awareness of the higher realms. I believe we all come in that way and it gets programmed out over time. But basically, his son had a very strong connection to higher dimensional beings, to where his son could basically almost like he would pick up the phone and communicate with them. So he helped his father out to regain his health, and because he could see what was, off in his subtle bodies. And then he wanted his dad's help to create these devices, because he knew that part of his soul mission was to bring this type of technology back to the earth, to repair the earth grid or to build a new earth grid. And then Harald actually on a soul level then had a contract to where he would help his son with the physical aspects of engineering these devices and so on. So they started to create these, and we'll go into this later, but part of this, you need somebody that's more spiritual advanced and that has that connection to actually activate the devices. And that's what his son would be doing. So they would make the device and his son would be like, well, it doesn't exactly work the way we expected it. So he would communicate with higher dimensional beings. They would make the modifications. And that's how the first devices were built. Now, that's where the opposition then came in, because Harald and his son were manufacturing these devices, which, by the way, were not nearly as powerful as the Cosmic Towers that are being built now. But still, it was obvious that if this technology was spread out, that there are certain forces on this planet that built let's just say, a control system, we're going to lose that grip. So they become aware of Harald and his son doing this. And this is when Harald was basically, Yeah, when all the trouble started, when they came after him, and they said that because he used his son to program actually the water, the fourth phase water in the devices, that was child labor. So they went after him, and I think Harald lost his home and everything, and he had to flee to Scandinavia near the North Pole, and I believe, or the Arctic Circle, sorry. And I believe they lived there for 5 years, like underground, and basically being guided through his son and being protected throughout the whole process. So yeah, they had to go underground. And from there, they started producing their devices again and bringing them into Germany slowly, and they got a foothold because the opposing forces knew that if this project was going to be stopped, it had to happen early on, because else it would pick up, like now it has too much momentum, right, to where it's real, where it can't be stopped, basically. So that's the nutshell of it. But on many of like the English interviews, he does go into more detail about that story.
Yeah, that's great. I love that aspect of it, where it came through the sun. Like I hadn't even realized that myself yet. And
Okay.
this world conditions us so deeply to accept truth from authority that's really just trying to cause us to give away our power.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get these courageous human beings, I really tend to be drawn to people who have like near-death experiences. They like cross over and then they come back, and like the knowledge those people bring tends to be like really amazing. And so,
and this also happened to Harald's son, by the way. He did attempt to commit suicide. He jumped on a bridge, and I know this sounds crazy, but found himself back on it, and basically like was said like, hey, it's not your time to go yet. Like he felt that he couldn't accomplish his mission, right? So he passed over to the other side, and there was basically a conversation and said like, no, you are on track and you got the support and you can do this. He was put back right into his body.
I believe in miracles, and I know there's not room in the mainstream press for something like that to sound credible, but when you see the magnitude of the life impact that somebody has that has an experience like that, and then they come back and they teach. It's like I've been studying a supplement recently, and the founder was pronounced dead at the scene of a car accident 50 years ago right now. And he's now got a huge company that is making extraordinary ingredients for people. And it's an ethical company designed to help the planet. Like, I love reading about stories like that.
Oh yeah, the evidence, and anecdotal and otherwise, is overwhelming. I forget the name of the neuroscience, the brain surgeon that was brain dead for 10 days, right? And traveled through all the realms and then came back. I forget his name, but these are all very prominent people. These are all people like myself. I have my own experiences, right, after my mother passing, because I didn't believe in any of this stuff. So that's why I feel if we've gone down that science path and then you get your awakening through experience, it's always very powerful.
Yep. So with that said, I'm going to throw out there the medical disclaimer. Nothing we're saying is here to treat, cure, or prevent a disease. And if you have a medical condition, please go see your doctor. And that just kind of sets the stage for the world that we live in. Like, we have to say that because we'll dance around some health topics around the edges. And there's that much power in the structures right now to control people. And this video is for the people who want to know more and want to fill in the perspective and want to understand. So I love that we're talking about that.
And on the topic of devices that quote unquote heal, Patrick, let's face it, all you do with those devices typically create an environment to where your natural blueprint, where your body can then do what it's designed to do.
Yeah, right? That's where healing comes from, right? It's from the human body, not from anything else. The body itself heals itself, as far as I can tell. So to that end, Harald has said that the Cosmic Tower provides the frequencies of essential oils and different kinds of light. How does a person interact with those specific healing energies or those forces to call forth certain energies? Is everything constantly available and applied to you as needed by your body, mind, spirit? Like, how does that work?
Yes, so within the toroidal field and without the makeup of the field, as you say, it does contain all the vibrations that a body would need to to properly function again at all levels. Now, but you also have to understand that we live in a realm where there's free will. So any higher dimensional energy, any higher dimensional being is never going to step on your journey. Oftentimes people are holding on to their illnesses because they have to learn a certain lesson. So any higher dimensional energy, any higher dimensional device is just not going to come from a place of judgment and say, like, this is something that needs to be fixed within you, right? So in that sense, it's like anything in this realm, until you really have the will for yourself to become whole again or realize or go through your healing path, nothing is really going to happen, in a sense. So yes, the potential is there with the cosmic tower, and it does things automatically like, you know, nature, right, where it does have the permission, like to regenerate nature and to remove the toxins and all that. But as far as people are concerned, it's always going to respect free will, meaning that if there is a person that's holding on to a particular ailment or said, I want nothing to do with this quackery or whatever they want to call it, that's okay. They can live by those limitations and they will be shielded to where the device will not affect those people, right? So when you consciously communicate, and this is the key, we're not talking about a piece of equipment here. We're talking about a consciousness and higher dimensional consciousness. So when you interact with it, of course, always it becomes more powerful. So absolutely, when you have the cosmic tower say, hey, I would like any and all assistance with my healing on all levels, and ask for it. That being said too, sometimes, you know, when we detox too quickly, it can get uncomfortable. Not that it's bad, because it's actually the toxins leaving our body, but it can be uncomfortable for a while. And I've experienced it myself with the cosmic tower, and it's just a matter of interacting with it and saying, turn it down a little. I need a bit more time to adjust. So you control the throttle basically through your own conscious communication with the device.
Well, that's great. You kind of ran right into our next question, which is about detox. And, you know, it seems like the cosmic tower is drawing stuff out of blood, water, air, like it's impacting everything. And so that's going to cause a lot of detox. And so this person was asking if you have like a larger one that might really cause a lot of detox, like how do you control it and manage it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I just explained is one way, right? You basically tell it, and then it can shield or it can buffer for you to have it not be as intense. It's like a dial. Because what does happen, Patrick, is your water structures get caught up again, right? So imagine water when it's not in a healthy state clumping together. And then you all know about these small veins we have in our bodies, our capillaries that are like thin, like a hair, right? What happens is they get clogged by these water molecules, by toxins, etc. So one of the things that happens is when you get in the field of the cosmic tower, all those water structures get caught up again. So those capillaries, things start flowing again. And what happens is oftentimes if there's toxins stored in there, well, they have to move through our system to get evacuated. But there definitely the advice is, you know, consciously work with the tower. And it's an individual thing. Everybody's is in a different place in their journey. Some people have a higher toxic load. Some people have more what I would call emotional constipation. Other people, I mean, it works on all these levels. So it's not a one size fits all that you could say like, hey, a 75 is not going to give any detox systems. Everybody's individual, right? But the key thing to remember is it is conscious. You communicate and you can control with that.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so this person heard Harald say that these units are initially spun and programmed by people who have connection to higher dimensional beings, and there are only a few of these people alive who can do that. And they connect the cosmic tower with a 9th dimensional soul. Did she understand this correctly? And is Harald one of those people? Is his son? What can you tell us about that?
So yeah, definitely his son can do this, but the person that's doing it now is at a much higher level even. And I believe it's 7, 8, 9 dimensional connections, depending on the size of the tower. So yes, you do need a person that has access to this realm, to these realms, and has that integrated enough in this earth realm to where they can basically form a bridge between the two dimensions, establish the portal, establish the contact, and then once it's open, it can sustain itself. From my knowledge, no, it's not something Harald can do. Yes, his son can do it, but the person that does it now is a much higher level than his son even. He's much more powerful. I do not know who the person is or where I believe the person's in Germany.
Thank you. Guys, I'm not monitoring the chat, so I just want to encourage you if you have questions. One of the things that pops up somewhat regularly is that people listen to the recording with Harald and they have a little bit of trouble with the English, and we understand. And so if there's anything that you want that you reviewed again, or any question that you have today, if you put it in the chat after I go through the ones that are here, or if Jen pops in and lets me know I need to do it, we'll get those questions too. But I've got a bunch more, and I'll just keep going. But your questions are welcome, and we will have to take them live. So let's say a person comes into the field of the cosmic tower, and they want to set up a shield around them, mm-hmm. so that they don't receive the energy. Mm-hmm. How do they do that? Just with their intention. Just set a shield around them and say, I want no interaction with it, and then yeah, that's clear enough. Mm-hmm. And so would you do that in your mind's eye? Like, would it be in, like, if you were literally doing it, would you just have the thought, or would you speak out loud? Like, how would you personally? Whatever you believe is necessary to do it. Good answer. To me, it can just be a thought. To others, it needs to be a spell. To others, it might be saying Mary had a little lamb and pretend they're in an egg. I mean, whatever empowers your consciousness to do that is, right? Mary had a little, that's great. That's great. All right, if you have a really large cosmic tower, mm-hmm. maybe one that's purchased jointly mm-hmm. by people who are, in some proximity to one another, how would you choose where to put it? And, if it's one of the big ones, the 8-footers with the 500-mile range, would it be too strong for the people who are close around it? And where are they putting the large ones in Europe? Yeah, so I think there's like close to 800 of the large ones, or more even, that are deployed right now. And I'm speaking like 220s and above, 7 feet and above. And the first one I saw was a shaman friend in Belgium, and he had a 2.5 meter. He had a 250, and he had sitting in his living room. And then, hey Nico, let me help people out with the term. So when Nico says 220, he's saying number of meters tall, and so there's a 220 and there's a 250. So roughly 8 feet, give or take mm-hmm. a little bit. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, so he actually, he's a shaman, and then also he's a crystal wholesaler, and he does treatments for corporate people, and he just has it sit there and he works with it with his clients. We have places in yoga studios, there's churches, because as you know, the ley lines of the earth, oftentimes that's where you will find the churches, right, and the temples, and also the military bases, but that's a different question. But basically, Harald is also one of those guys. I mean, there's highly spiritual people that are working with this, and they're able to perceive of what's going on in the energetic realms. So oftentimes, when a particular place needs a tower and there's nobody living there, or the funding is not there, like with Poland, Harald
did provide the towers for that location and make sure that they're placed in the right location. But as far as communities, so in Holland we have a lot of communities where, for example, people in a particular city do a Kickstarter or a fundraiser, and they get a tower for their community. It'll be in a more public place, like a healing center, where people can have access with it and meditate. So it really depends on the group. Now, what the Cosmic Tower does obviously thrive upon, since it's conscious, is interacting with other consciousness, right? So it's not meant to be, put somewhere in a closet and then the door locked, and you wouldn't treat a person that way either, or a guest, or I hope not. So the same for the Cosmic Tower. So any place that people can interact with it. Now, what is important is, especially for all towers, but especially the big ones, is that people don't take pictures of it, because if a picture's taken of a Cosmic Tower, it's like an address almost in time and space, and it could be attacked with an energy weapon, or it could be, they could try to affect it. That's why we always advise, do not take pictures of your Cosmic Towers and where they stand.
Nice. And inside, outside, like where in a home?
Oh no, definitely inside, right? Remember, even though it's fourth phase, the Cosmic Tower has living water in it. So if you put it outside in freezing temperatures or in the desert where it gets really hot, that might damage, or is going to damage the device. So definitely inside. Yes.
All right. This is a fun one because I know how playful Nico is, and I've seen the way he plays with dogs. So now we get to talk about interactivity and playful with the Cosmic Tower. So, our website says that it likes to be played with and interacted with. How much interaction does it want? And if a lot of people purchase one Cosmic Tower, how do they all interact with it? So it's like it's saying that it's a live spiritual being hanging around. How is that different from spirit guides and the relationships with them? And do you have to look at it to interact with it?
No, you don't. I mean, you can purely telepathically connect with it. So what I first did, I sat in front of it and just introduced myself, and then later on I got a name through that it wanted to be called. That happens, right? It's not necessary, and it's mind to mind. All right, and you can ask your questions, and it will respond to you. Because I actually trained a bunch of my clients. I do emotional release work and reprogramming of the unconscious mind and hypnosis. And I've actually trained clients as young as like 16, 17 years old to do their emotional clearing work and have the Cosmic Tower as a helper, as a consciousness to assist them with very great results, to where they now, they have a Cosmic Tower like one family, and they have a 75 for the whole family, and the whole family works with it. The mother works with it in her own way. The son works with it, and it's also almost like you would connect to a Wi-Fi in your home with your computer. Do you have to sit right in front of it or look at it? No, right? You just set the intention to connect with it, and as long as you're in its field, you work with it. But everybody is different in that way. Some people they can see the light, right? Some people can see etheric energies. Other people are more clairaudient and not as clairvoyant. It does not matter. What is important is that you just find your own way. And typically, the more playful we are, the more access we have, because our vibration is just much higher. And I was fortunate to meet some high-level spiritual masters, but they all were in common is that they were very playful. They were like little children, because it's that high vibration, and any higher vibrational being is attracted to that, right? So any being, I would say, in general.
And then Patricia commented in the chat that so the smaller ones would be for our home. Patricia, I can speak to that. The biggest one that fits in your budget is the one for your home. Like, right now I'm sitting with a 35 centimeter one because that's the one that's in the US. but as soon as there is a 8 foot tall one and I can get that in here, it's going to be in here. Like, I want to be near the biggest one that I can be. In fact, I'll probably have a room full of 8-foot ones as part of the distribution process. So that's a benefit of being in the distribution business. So, if you look at your finances and, buying a 35 centimeter one and spending that amount of money is what works for you, that's the one. And that will take care of an entire home. I happen to know your home and know it's not like 10,000 square feet. But that would be the one. Maybe somebody would have a big enough home for needing one bigger than that, and then they would probably buy the biggest tower. So it's just a matter of what you want and what fits in your values, beliefs, and budget. And one of the things that will happen when we start to get hundreds of these into people's homes, as you all who have been around the structured water journey with me the last 10 years know, is I'll be in communion with you and learning what your experience is like. Like, I'm about to have an experience, having lived with the Cosmic Tower for the last 6 weeks or so. It's about to leave me, or I'm leaving it. And while I'm gone, it's going to get moved away, and it's not going to be here when I get back. And so I get the experience of with it and without it. And that's part of how I learn. So I'm going to learn from my experience and your experience, and I'm going to tell all those stories together. So we'll figure it out. Nico, jumping back into the prepared questions, Harald talked about the or maybe it's on our website that talks about the smallest one, which we're not importing into the US right now. There's something called a mini. Mm-hmm. Until we get some larger towers to support the energy field, we're not doing the minis. But the minis will come, and this person is saying the implication is that our website says it's better than Aqua Energizer for structuring water. Would we be able to offer these smaller ones for structuring water and food, and being able to take it with you when traveling? So I'll speak to that a little bit, and then you can jump in on it too. So those little ones, those minis, are for traveling, but until we get big ones around, we don't perceive that the effect of traveling with them is going to be substantial enough to merit it. They're more of a protector. You want to jump in with me on that, Nico? I know you've studied them a little bit more than I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have to look, the bigger the device, the stronger. The more water it holds, and also the further the water is separated, right? The vortex, it becomes more powerful. And the mini and then the 15 centimeter ones, they just protect you from when you're outside of the bigger field of your cosmic tower. And what was important in the first phase of this project is that we built a supporting footprint, which means to have enough of the very large towers, because the large towers, it's not just the matter that they have a bigger range and they're just more powerful, but it's also, remember, it's conscious technology. The larger towers support the smaller ones. So if a smaller one, if a mini or a 15 or a 35 is in an environment where he's getting bullied, like on the playground, well, Big Brother's going to step in and say, hey, back off a little bit, give him some space here, right? That's like what the big tower does to support the smaller towers. So from a project point of view, it makes much more sense. And that's also what happened in Europe, to have the big towers rolled out first and provide the infrastructure and really put a dent into the 5G and start recovering nature. And then in the next phase, we can bring in these smaller towers. Now, one thing to also understand when you talk about the sizes is that if you go from a 25, which we're not going to have originally in the US, from a 25 to a 35, it's a 6x different in strength. So the 35 centimeter one, the one that you have with you now, Patrick, and then the 75 centimeter one, which is like the biggest personal or home model, is 6 times more powerful than the 35. So it's not like it's like a linear relationship. They become far more powerful. as they get bigger. So yeah, for us, it's important now initially that we have people that are either individually or as a group helping to deploy these larger towers, because everybody benefits. And everybody's smaller tower that's within those ranges, the more support they have from larger tower, the more effective that those devices become. It's a team effort.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. And let's speak to the structured water portion of this. So when I started representing the first structured water device to the market, the way the presentation went was I call friends who are highly intuitive and I'd say, I found this thing and I don't know how to talk about it. And like, could we just make this short? Like, we just ask your higher self if you're supposed to get one, and I'll give you an unconditional guarantee, and then you can tell me what your experience is. And I actually had 11 friends willing to go in on that sales presentation. And then they started using them in their lives. And then Hope Fitzgerald was one of those people. And she had an event. And I went as a participant, nothing to do with structured water. And there were 11 participants at the event. And we sat down for lunch, and Hope brought the thing out and talked about her experience with it. And 5 of the 11 people at the table bought structured water devices. And I was like, okay, you caught my attention. Like, I'm paying attention now. And then I just kept asking the people, like, what's your experience? What's your experience? So, and then 5 years later, I wrote a book about it. So I don't know all the subtle differences between structuring water with a cosmic tower and a structured water device. It's an inquiry. And as much as I'm going to engage with it, I'm going to engage with you. You guys are going to teach me your authentic experiences. And I'll probably help form the questions, but the answers are going to come from all of us. So as far as I can tell, until now, structuring water with a vortex and sacred geometry, those were my deal breakers. And now we've moved into a realm where we have a different form of sacred geometry. We have this huge torus field, like slowly spinning with us. And what I'm coming to understand these last half a dozen weeks living with the tower is that the tower restores the coherence in the torus that I am. And that brings coherence between me and the toruses that are smaller and between me and the toruses that are bigger. So that means the apple that I eat, that's a torus. The space that I live in, the earth that I'm on, and the galaxy that I'm in, I'm feeling a coherent harmony with all of that. And I'm experiencing what that means. So in terms of interacting with the tower, like, I do like to look at it. Nico's more gonna get it telepathically, but when I look at it, I feel it. It's like a strong thing for me. So I've felt water that is aqua energizer and cosmic tower together, and it's like the softest, most amazing thing I've ever experienced. Actually, Nico gave me that experience the first time. And now I have a really hard time because I can't get aqua energizer water that isn't cosmic tower, right? Because I'm always in the field. So I'm going on the road this weekend, and I'm going to be away for 10 days, and I'll take an aqua energizer with me, but I won't take a cosmic tower with me. So I get to start having the contrast. So this is how those answers are going to come up. And one thing I would share with everybody is the structured water industry, which I'm a part of, uses verbiage to make itself special, right? It says, you got to get structured water. But the terminology that we've chosen it's something that I stumble on because I see it more deeply. All water is structured. There's no such thing as non-structured water. The question is it structured toward harmony or structured toward chaos? So the water that goes through a municipal water supply and comes out of a long straight pipe is structured toward chaos. And when it comes out of that pipe through an aqua energizer into a cosmic tower field, it's structured toward harmony. So we're always structuring. In fact, we're structuring with our words right now. We're structuring with our hearts. We're structuring with everything. So there's no such thing as non-structured water. And what I think we're really after is, what's the degree of harmonization in the structured water that brings me the benefits I'm looking for in my life, right? So if I just come on this property and I drop into the energy field of water coming through pipes in an aqua energizer and coming out in a cosmic tower, and I just drop into contentment and peace and love, what else do I need to know? And sometimes it might not be as clear as all that, but that's what we're going to figure out together. So I ask you, as you begin to have experiences, that you teach me, and I promise to teach everybody else. Nico, any final word on the structured water topic?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Patrick, for your observations there, and I very much agree with all the resonance between the toroidal fields from the micro to a macro level. A few obvious advantages between the aqua energizer and the cosmic tower. In order for water to be structured with an aqua energizer, you got to run it through there. So we also have water in the air we breathe, right? We'll have waters that sit out there. Let's say you have a pond, right, that are not streaming. So one of the things is the cosmic tower, by the way it functions through its toroidal field, is able to get to any water that's just in a quote-unquote natural state. What do I mean by that? That it cannot get to water that's under pressure in a pipe. Imagine all the water molecules being really tight together, like under pressure. Where do you see that in nature? Where do you see copper pipes? It doesn't, right? Because, so the cosmic tower cannot get to it when it's in the pipes, when it's packed together. But the moment it leaves the faucet, imagine it entering that toroidal field that then cuts up the water structures. But the other important thing is that it infuses it with the rainbow spectrum and infuses it with all the light frequencies that we need, because as Patrick says, yes, all water is structured. Then it's a question, is it structured to bring more harmony, or is it structured to bring chaos? Yes. Now let's say that it's structured to bring harmony. Then it's a question of how much of the light frequencies that we as beings need. Think about this, the colors of the 7 chakras, for example. How many of those light frequencies are within that structure of the water? Right. That's the only thing I would like to add to that, Patrick.
Awesome. I also have like one other piece that's, I don't know where we're going with it, but I spent a decade inside of the part of a torus that is the vortex, that is the center, right? So spin-wise, that's where a vortex happens, is in the center of a torus. And now, after a decade of having that be where my consciousness and my whole vocation has been, it's like my dream state, everything about me has been in that vortex for a decade. Now I'm being given a torus to live in. And the vortex is a part of the torus. I'm curious about that. Like, I think I want to keep bringing that question up and then finding connections about what that all means. So we'll see. It's a mystery to be revealed. Maybe that'll be the next 10 or 20 years. It certainly strikes me as fun. Nico, the EES technology has been around for like 20 years, and it's getting put out there in the world into various centers, wellness centers, and people are going in and they're paying $35 or $40 to go sit in the energy field of these EES devices. Do you know anything about them yet? And can you do any comparison between the two?
I have not experienced it firsthand. That's the first thing I need to say. So I cannot speak from experience here. There's a few things I do know and a few distinctions that I make, but I'm not here to, judge anybody else's technology. A few distinct differences that I know of is that with the EES, it works on electricity, right? So at some level it's digital and it's still connected to the grid. And I believe if you're working with our electricity grid, you're always dealing with some level of distortion. I also believe that a digital signal can closely mimic an analog or a natural signal, but never entirely and completely, right? It's like a violin, you can get it to sound the same, but there's still a difference when it comes from a violin being played or from a CD. We intuitively know that there is a difference in that. The other thing that I know, I believe, I don't know the exact pricing, but I believe like the smallest home model starts maybe like $20,000 or something. And then the one that you're talking about for the big treatment centers, you're talking about $130,000 or so for a large deployment. Well, that's a lot of money. If you go look at the largest cosmic tower, right, that we have in the US today, it's like $16,500. And you're not just helping yourself, you're helping everybody in a 500-mile diameter and helping nature. I do believe that with the EES, with any scalar technology, there is an effect in the environment. But I do not believe, from what I've read, that it's as far-reaching. And for me, that's me personally. There's a whole, how should I say, difference in the morality. For me, the cosmic tower is, we do not want to come get you in for treatments and stomp as many people as we can in the room and charge you by the hour to be healthy. We're inviting you to be part of a project, that we as humanity do for humanity, to where everybody can be healthy, to where nature can be healthy. And then for me, there's a difference, in the feel of that and in the alignment of that.
Yeah, I really like the way you make those points. And I have a few things to say about this topic too. As the CEO of the Wellness Enterprise, I've been approached many times over the last 10 years to sell different water structuring technologies. And one of the lines that I've drawn is I haven't sold anything that uses electricity. Like I just don't want that distortion. Like if the point is to harmonize and come into alignment with the blueprint of the creator, then find something that's a vortex and sacred geometry is what I learned, not find something that plugs in. So I feel strongly about that. The second is putting some specifics around the finances that you referred to. I went and did a little research. Our pricing ends at $16,500. Theirs starts at $28,000.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So that's a pretty substantial difference right there. And then I have one more thing to say, which I feel pretty strongly about, which is their model's been around for 20 years, and it feels capitalist to me. It feels like it's about money, because charging people $35 or $40 an hour to come sit inside a room. Like, hey, just come sit in my parking lot. Like, my device reaches out in the parking lot. You can sit there for free. Mm-hmm. And so the intention of the Cosmic Tower is that we all band together and we buy and distribute enough of these things that we get this energy everywhere in our world. That's the goal of the project. And, part of our inventory management strategy as the first containers come to the US is to immediately split the inventory up and move it out into different locations to facilitate more local deliveries, but also to drive the energy right there into those locations right from the get-go. And so if you think about that with one 40-foot container, which is what we're working on right now, and then you go out 2 years and we're start talking about doing one every month, then you're talking about putting a lot of energy everywhere. And now we just all benefit all the time. And there's no more pay. There's no $35 an hour. Like, we got to get to the place in this world where human beings just get served and it's free. Like, it's part of our birthright. Mm-hmm. And the Cosmic Tower is aligned with those principles. And that's really important for me. Okay. I just saw in the chat that Thiers, who's a great biohacker, said that he had an art crystal for years and he ended up selling it. And it's interesting to hear you say that, because I know. Oh, there you are. Hey, bud. Yeah, come on. Tell us why you sold your art crystal. So, for those that don't know, Nassim Haramein is the guy that was the guest on Foster Gamble's Thrive documentary. And he is the scientist. He's a really wacky, amazing guy. He lived in his van next to the ocean in California for a really long time. He's been through some trials and tribulations in life. And he's studied physics to the point of going out there in the world and forming a foundation and coming out and saying, you're never going to find the God particle. It doesn't matter how big a reactor you build, you're never going to find it, because it's a spin. It's not a thing. You're never going to get small enough resolution, because it's the way that it moves. And so he's got these amazing ideas, and he manifested the art crystal, which I brought the Wellness Enterprise up to, 3 or 4 times, and looked at distribution, and I just never felt right. Never sold the product. So now here's somebody who had one and got rid of it. So Ted, tell us about it.
Hopefully this microphone is getting rid of the external noise here. Okay, good. I love what the Resonance Science Foundation is doing, and the art crystal is an amazing piece of technology that they've created. Having said that, Patrick introduced me to somebody named Holland Franklin, and she taught me about subtle energy, how to feel it, how it works, how to test things, and so on. And through a skill set that I developed through Holland, I was able to test the art crystal and feel it more. And I immediately recognized that it has a very strong, very hard artificial feel to it. So it does and can impart information to water. There's no question, but it has a very technological, non-organic feel to it. I don't know how to describe it. And also, where the chain is for men, where the pendant hangs, it has a spin to it that is not correct for one of the vortex energy centers in men. If you know the pulsar system that was started by George T. Yao back in the 70s, which is a system that I use through Holland, again, of course. The spin was not right for my vortex energy center or chakra, but all in all, the art crystal is very strong. It definitely is doing something, but I didn't like the artificial feel of it once I became more sensitive to subtle energies. I don't know if that helps or not. Or
I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, thanks so much. And you guys, I think that's part of the Wellness Enterprise is I'm just guided. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next year. I didn't know the Cosmic Tower was going to come into my life, and the beacon that I listen to is harmonized. It's on behalf of all of us, and it's supernatural. So the art crystal is great. It's an amazing invention. And the Resonance Foundation, extraordinary science coming out of there. And I would never say there's anything wrong with that product. Just that as you get into more layers of subtle awareness, you may find that it does or doesn't work for you. Susie, I didn't see your bigger comment when I jumped to Ted's, because Ted's was smaller and easier to read because I just was kind of scanning. But I see that Susie's been structuring water with the art crystal for the last 4 years. And what I want to say about that is, no, you don't need to stop using it. You have the unbelievable opportunity to be somebody who experiments and teaches us. So maybe you take the art crystal, and I don't know how long they say the range is for that thing, but maybe you take it and you put it at your sister's house or at your office or at a friend's house or whatever, and then you let the Cosmic Tower hold the space for a while and you have that experience, and then you bring it back and you have the experience of the two together. When I was learning structured water devices, I did something I called 3 days on, 3 days off, which was if I didn't understand the technology and how it impacted my body and my energy field. I would, let's say, drink reverse osmosis water for 3 days, and then reverse osmosis water structured for 3 days, and then structured water for 3 days, and then repeat through the cycle. And through doing that, I actually came to understand that when I drink reverse osmosis, I feel dehydrated. When I drink structured, I feel wetness, and I really noticed it on the inside of my cheeks. So 3 days on, 3 days off it would let my being teach me what it wanted. And as soon as you know, like from here, as soon as you know, I want that, like I want both technologies. I'm so happy that I own both technologies. Great, go with that truth. And then the last part of that 3 days on, 3 days off thing is stay open. These are not permanent elections. We're not fixed beings. This isn't a fixed planet. So you have a preference. You might go 3 years doing all the same thing for 3 years and then be like, oh, there's a new insight. In a way, the Cosmic Tower coming in is like that. So you get to be the tester and you get to teach me, and then I'll teach everybody. So, all right, Nico, let's get back over to these questions and back on track with you. Although, guys, the audience engagement is like the best part. So when you comment, that's fantastic. And Jen, if I'm missing anything over there, if you put it specifically in front of me, that's really helpful. So Nico, let's say you want a CT 75, like a Cosmic Tower 75 centimeters. So that's the one that's about 2.5, 3 feet tall. Mm-hmm. This person was assuming that it's not easily movable. So the first thing I'm going to say about that is it's easily movable.
It's easily movable. Yeah.
And then there's particularities around where you put it in a home, because you have electrical outlets and, we have so much equipment these days. And then you don't want it to get too cold. So, you don't want it to be vulnerable to freezing. And then you have aesthetics as well. You want it to be beautiful. Can the Cosmic Tower be painted, placed in a box, or placed behind a floor screen?
Well, first,
start there.
Yeah. Would you put your baby there? That'd be my question. If you would put your baby in a box, or I'm joking, right? But yeah, there's a few considerations. So we talked about the obvious one, which is physical safety. So you want it in a place where it cannot freeze or is exposed to very high heat, or that it's gonna fall off of. Then obviously, since you're creating a harmonizing field and you could look at the place where the Cosmic Tower comes in as a portal, you don't want to put it on your fridge or on some other thing that gives off a very distorted energy, right? So just pay attention to that. Just don't put it right next to your Wi-Fi or whatever. But it's not like you need to have it many feet away. Just make sure that for a few feet around it, right, that the environment is clear from as many distortions, and then set it in a place where it's part of your life. Remember, this is not just about structuring water. This is not just about cleaning air. This is about having a 24/7 higher dimensional spiritual teacher and a healer that wants to work with you. And as much as you want to work with it, that's okay. But what I have noticed, it likes to be more on a heart level. So the smaller units, they do not like to sit directly on the ground, because one of the things that happens as it interacts with the waters in the air, a lot of things like, how you have house dust and all that, it will basically get deactivated and kind of drop to the ground. So if you put the small Cosmic Tower on the floor, it's kind of like it's sitting in its own dirt in a way. For me, you can play with it, but it likes to be at heart level. The other thing that I've noticed, when it's in a place where I consciously see it and walk by it, I'm way more inclined to cognitively even acknowledge it or work with it, right? It doesn't have to sit in a fixed place. You can move it around, but again, put it somewhere you would put a person you love.
That's beautiful. A related question is it too strong to put in a bedroom? And I can address that, which is I've been sleeping like a baby since I started sleeping with it in my bedroom. I slept till 10 a.m. yesterday morning. That was pretty late. And so no, it's not too strong to put in a bedroom. And you can always ask your energy field, ask the interaction, set the intention that it only affects you at a 10% level or a 90% level or whatever feels right to you. It's definitely okay to sleep with it. Do you want to say anything about that, Nico?
Yeah, but for most people, they advise that when you first get it, don't put it straight on your nightstand the first night. Give yourself a chance to get used to the energy field, and then as it's more integrated and as you've gone through your own alignment, which for everybody's gonna be like mine was sitting on my nightstand, I'll tell you, the first night, because I didn't heed the rules and I was just too excited about it, and I did it and I was totally fine. Other than I had a lot of energy going through my system. So
yeah,
but they can definitely be put in your bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was introduced to the Cosmic Tower, like I had an immediate harmonized reaction to it. And I know somebody who was introduced to it and had a detoxing reaction to it. And both are true. It's not one or the other. So it makes sense, if you know me, that I'm going to go to a harmonic energy like this and I'm just going to love it up and it's going to love me up. If that's not your experience, you can either turn it down or you can suffer through and you can look at what's being detoxed in your life, and you can call for support. Like that's our joy, is to support people to understand and to move into greater levels of health. To that end, Patricia asked whether she still need to use her portable structured water device. And, my answer to that is it's a personal call. I realized as I saw the question that I'm getting super excited about how much harmony I have in my life. And so there's like harmony over here, and there's harmony over here, and there's harmony over here, and there's harmony over here. And so sometimes I want it all, This morning I went through a series of energies that tripped me a little bit. There were a lot of text conversations that I was in, and I've shut off the notification sound on my computer, but it goes on anyway. And so oftentimes, even though I always have it off, it goes on and I have to turn it on again and then turn it off again and it'll stop. So I was getting pelted with that. And then I got called by somebody who doesn't ask me about my space. He just talks over me, and he started talking over me. And I just got a little bit off. And so then I want to use all my tools. So I stopped and did some emotion code in front of the Cosmic Tower, and I drank some structured water, and I went outside and breathed in nature. You can use it all.
Mm-hmm.
So
play with it, because I use my structured water device right now because I'm away from the Cosmic Tower, and I was away from it for 2 months. And then this weekend I got to spend like 3-4 days with it, which was really good. But now I miss it again because I'm out of the field and I'm in the city, and you don't even realize. It's easy to take for granted once it's in your space and it gets all quiet and you get used to it. But it's oftentimes then when you step out of that field, it's only then that you realize what a positive benefit it has on your life. And if I'm going to an area where there's no Cosmic Tower, yeah, of course I use my structured water device. Even if I have my Cosmic Tower, because I like to play with stuff. For me, structured water is never like a process. It's a playful, right? I run it through my restructure, I engage the Cosmic Tower and my own heart, and we imprint it with something, all right?
Renan, thanks for jumping in on that. All right, I've been avoiding this question because I just don't know what it means. So I'm just going to throw it out there and we'll see what conversation goes with it. So is it sun pyramid water?
I don't know what is meant by sun pyramid water, but let's talk about the water. First, the combination of the water is a mixture of healing waters all over the world. And let's just say that they contain the full spectrum combined. So what Harald's son did, I believe they went to a lady who had samples of over 600 healing wells all over the world. And he went in, no, not this one, not that one. Because what you need is, like, a particular healing well can have certain healing frequencies. And then another healing well can have other healing frequencies, depending on the mineral content, on the energy there. Now, what Harald and his son were creating was a water that had the full spectrum, meaning as much of the healing frequencies in there, but also no overlap. Because if you have an overlap between two frequencies, either you get an amplification if these frequencies are in phase, or they cancel each other out. Right? So it's a combination of healing waters from all over the world to where it has a full spectrum light. Now, what is important, this water is not like water coming out of your faucet. It's forward phase water. So we have to look at it as a plasma, as an energy, as a liquid crystal. And so I don't think that answers your sun pyramid question, but because I'm not familiar with what that is, but
well, you did good to talk about the quality of the water, and I think that's the point. Okay, so somebody said, okay, guys, it's 4:01. I'm gonna keep asking questions until the last question at 4:15. No more questions after 4:15. We'll stop because we're not going to get through them all today, and they've just got to draw a line somewhere, and we'll just do another call. So my preference is to stay in the chat and stay live with you guys and keep the dialogue there. And as long as people in the chat are asking questions, we'll go. But then on the ones that were pre-prepared, we can just schedule a whole nother call. So I just think that's a good line so everybody can manage their schedules and we can all know what we're doing together. So somebody said, I'm getting the 75. That's the 75 centimeter one. All of them are available on the wellnessenterprise.com in the product, and you can see the sizes and the amounts. That one is about 28 or 30 inches, I think is what that translates to. And so the person says, do I need to buy a base for it to sit on so it can be at heart level, or is it close to heart level when it's sitting?
No, it's sitting. It has its own base. So you could set it, I mean, since it is 75 centimeters, typically if you would put it on a shelf, right, or on, like a cabinet, like it'll be at about the right height. Like even if you would set it on a desk, for most people, it'll be at the right height.
Yeah. And guys, I don't think we want to be exchanging pictures of our towers, but we can share ideas on them. And, frankly, I think getting, like, and somebody else said they're going to be getting a pedestal for it. I think honoring this as like the central, it's almost like your own heart. It's like the heartbeat of your house, and building an art thing around it. Like when Nico left the 35 centimeter one with me, he also very graciously left me my choice of any of his crystals. And so I was like, I'll take this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And I put them all around it like it's a shrine. And it feels really right to do that. And so, we're going to be bringing a crystals expert into the Lavanya community, and he's going to be making available to us pieces of his Lemurian crystal, which is a really, really special crystal. When I get one of those, I'm going to put in near a tower.
And that's also one of the ways of playing with it. You can, if you know how to dowse or how to use a pendulum, and you can tune in, put crystals around it, and you see the range will vary. If you put the right crystals around it, it'll boost the range. So that's what I told Patrick. I was like, here, play with it. Pick some of my crystals and feel where they want to be. So,
yeah. I love that. And I highly recommend like really decorating it and accentuating the opportunity with it. I think I'm caught up on the chat questions. If you guys have more, keep them coming. I'll jump over to the others now. Okay, there are numerous new energy devices on the market, and some have more or less similar claims. I see some of the images of the structured water and some vague testimonials, but what other studies have been done as to the results that could persuade non-spiritually minded people that this thing is effective and what it's effective for? And are any of those studies in English? I'm going to stop at that part of the question. And I have one thing to say before you talk to this topic, Nico, which is I am not in the business of convincing anybody. If somebody is non-spiritually minded, like, I just honor their beliefs.
Yes.
Like, your beliefs are beautiful, have them. And if it would take trust or belief or something that you don't have, intuition, feeling, sensitivity, for you to experience this, and you don't have that, then you could just not have that. That's fine. Like, the world is doing just fine and you're doing just fine. We're not here to convince anybody of anything. Nico, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, that's how I was going to start that off, right? Those people that are in tune, people that are ready for this technology, because it does take a certain consciousness, right? I mean, if you go look a decade ago, if you had to talk, when I was taking my structured water device around, people are like, oh, you really believe that woo-woo and this and that? And in the beginning, I felt like I had to convince them or prove to them. It's like, no, your journey is your journey. And for me, I do understand more than most people about the science behind the cosmic tower, but ultimately what for me did it was sitting in front of a 2.5 meter one and not having a thought for like 25 minutes and just being like in that field, like I was with my Taoist like master teacher, where you just were like, wow, right? That's what did it for me. And because here's the thing, we live in a world where science tells us what's good for us and what's not. Have you ever seen like a study from the manufacturer that 5G is actually bad for you? Or no, all their tests are going to show that it's not going to harm you, right? So do we have to believe somebody from a lab coat with their own interests in telling us what works and what doesn't? I think big part of humanity taking its own power back and coming into its own alignment is to trust. Like, we have the highest technology within us, which is our own consciousness, right? And we are moving into these technologies that do not look like your wires sticking out and whatever. This is nature's principle. It's like a portable chakra, right? And if you see what has happened in Europe, and we're talking about 800 large towers deployed and over a few thousands in 2.5 years, it was all spiritual people that took to it. It was never a matter of we're going to convince the whole world about this or that. That being said, yeah, there have been some tests done, right? Like the negative ions being measured in a space, a cosmic tower being brought in for 2 hours, and then seeing a 10 or 20x increase in the ions. Now, if you accurately want to measure toroidal fields, it takes different equipment too. You're not just going to stand there with your little magnetic field meter, right? And a lot of that equipment has been suppressed too, to measure toroidal fields, because the toroidal field is also the access point to free energy, etc. But the main thing is, and I'm in a lot of, like in Holland is very active. Unfortunately, those groups are in Dutch. That's my first language, so I can understand it. But there's an entire Telegram group where all the testimonials are like overwhelming from people all over. And I see the same actually going to happen into the US. It's time for all of us on this call who are more awakened in our consciousness, right, to take charge, right, and to go with what we know is right.
Yeah, for sure. And Anna Love writes in the chat about how fast the network is growing around these cosmic towers. I think I'm understanding her words correctly. And, as the CEO of a structured water company and the world's largest structured water distributor, I can tell you that the first year, so 365 days of my life spent trying to get this company off the ground, I sold 60 devices. That's about one a week. And Harald has sold thousands, between 1 and 2,000. I don't know the number. I know it's more than 1,200, and I think it's less than 2,000 in 2 years. And so, I didn't go from 60 to 1,200 or 1,600 the next year. Like it was a road before we started selling thousands. And so for something to get into the thousands quickly, it speaks to simultaneously the invention and us, like what has happened with our consciousness. It used to, for 5 years, I was the only one that answered the phone at the Wellness Enterprise. And I talked to everybody. And I'm very good with math, and I would be on the phone for a long time with people. And I, roughly in my head calculated that the average phone call for somebody to purchase a structured water device 10 years ago was 42 minutes. And now and I was always trying to I was always trying to outdo arguments, like trying to put information that would counter the argument. And this is what I learned so clearly. I don't try and convince anybody of anything. And now my average call is 9 minutes. And it's like, well, this is what we're doing. And if that works for you, you do it too. And if it doesn't, let me give you the phone number for a company that's doing what you want. Like, you don't have to stay here with us. So I love how fast the Cosmic Tower is spreading. And I'm frankly honored that the Wellness Enterprise gets to be a part of it. And I think that we will together, by each realizing that we're in this together and putting the energy to it, that could be getting your rich neighbor to buy one, right? Like it doesn't have to mean shelling out every dollar that you have. It just means teaching the world about it. And we will together spread these things and harmonize our energy fields.
Yeah, and also let's not forget that we're not talking about a product that is being sold or marketed. It's about a new energy grid that's being rolled out. And there are higher dimensional, energies that are coordinating this on a different level. And like right now, Harald is going all through Spain and Portugal. I talked to him last night. I think that man works harder than anybody I know. He only sleeps like a few hours and he drives 800 kilometers. I think he's in Portugal tomorrow or today. But basically all those trips are guided by like a higher consciousness. It's like in your own life being guided with your ego versus being guided by your higher self. The higher self road is not always the obvious next step. And that's why with this project too, we've seen it has its own timing to it, its own synchronicity of this technology being rolled out.
Great. I love the community that's here. I see somebody in the chat named Ellen wrote, "Thank you, I love you." And there was an Ellen that called the Wellness Enterprise like 10 years ago, and she always said, "Thank you, I love you." And I'm betting it's the same one. So it's a real pleasure to be community with you guys. You guys are amazing. And I think this is where we'll wrap. Like, unless you guys have more, it is the same Ellen. Well, thank you. I love you too, Helen. 10 years. So what a privilege it is to have this discussion. Like this gave me so much energy, and seeing you guys and seeing your faces is really supportive and wonderful, and feeling your questions. And Nico, like how much energy you've put into this and what you've learned and how you teach, and that we're all in this world of like, just hanging out together, following our intuition. Nobody's trying to convince anybody of anything, and we're not trying to prove anything. We're just like, well, maybe life could be better if we participate in this. So I'm honored. I'm really honored, and I thank you guys for showing up. Keep emailing your questions. Keep telling people about the Telegram groups. Keep telling people about the Wellness Enterprise. Like, let this be known.